All right, so why don't we go ahead and get started? It is my privilege to invite Dr. Tanya Mullins here from across the street. Many of you may know Tanya. She's given this presentation or a similar one on effective mentoring at the early stage of career development a couple of times prior to the pandemic starting. It's always a joy to have her here. She's an associate professor in the Division of Adolescent and Transitional Medicine. She's also the associate director for division director for research there. And I don't think Tanya will tell you so much about her own research today, but I'm going to tell you anyway, because I'm always happy to find and remember the other people in our world that work on prevention of HIV and STDs, particularly in our adolescent population. So thank you for being here, Tanya. We are looking forward to your presentation, and I will hand the mic over to you.
All right, well, thank you so much. I'm really thrilled to be able to talk with you around developing effective mentoring relationships as an early career investigator. So I wanted to just talk a little bit about me so you guys know where I'm coming from. Some of you already know me. So I did my medical school training at the Medical University of South Carolina. That's the one in Charleston with the nice, better weather. Pediatrics residency at Vanderbilt Children's Hospital, where I met my husband, who's pictured in the photo there. We moved then to Cincinnati to do clinical fellowship for me in adolescent medicine. I then stayed on and did a separate NRSA research fellowship that was through general pediatrics and adolescent medicine. And then I've been on the faculty since 2010. As Jason mentioned, I'm the Associate Division Director for Research for the Division of Adolescent and Transition Medicine. I'm a physician scientist, so I have a current R01 focusing on transgender health, and then industry funding as well, focusing on HIV prevention. And my primary mentor through my journey, essentially, I think since I walked in the door, has been Jessica Kahn, who I'm sure is also familiar to many of you. And then I throw this photo in to show you that once you've been mentored by someone for a long time, apparently you start dressing like them. So be really picky about and careful about who you choose to be your primary mentor, because you will start dressing alike. So today's topics, we'll start off with how to identify mentors, and talking about the idea of web of mentors and peer mentors, how to optimize mentoring relationships, challenges in mentoring relationships, what do mentors want, and then a brief discussion about what not to do in a humorous kind of way that you'll remember, and then transitioning to being a mentor. So how do you identify a mentor? This, I think, is a common question amongst early career folks. And so there's different roles for different needs, and it's important, I think, to understand and have a framework for what those are so that you know what you're asking from a person. So a primary career mentor is someone who you have a longitudinal relationship with them. They're in it with you for the long term. They're invested and committed to you and your success. So not just your career, but you as an individual and as a professional. There are technical mentors. So these are people who are going to teach you technical skills. For example, the person who taught me how to insert implantable contraception. There are sponsors. These people are really important. These are advocates for you by using their networks and connections to open doors. So this is someone who, for example, is linked into an important committee that would be really great for you to be a part of, or someone who nominates you for a leadership position. Connectors are people who are tend to be fairly senior and may not have time to actually be a hands-on mentor for you, but someone who can use their seniorness to link you to important people both within and outside of your organization. So these people are really important too, and they can help you identify mentors, both primary mentors and then people to help fill in your mentorship web. So obviously there are benefits to mentoring to the mentee. So learning about the organizational environment, socialization into the profession, gaining knowledge and skills, honing professional behavior, learning to overcome setbacks. That's a big one, right? This is someone who can help you manage when things don't go the way you anticipated, and helping with networking, which is another critical part of professional organizations. And then there are benefits to the mentor, but the benefits to the mentor shouldn't be the primary goal. The focus in mentoring relationships is really on the mentee. So the mentor does benefit by sharing experiences and learnings. The mentee may help them keep up to date in the field, bringing new things to talk about. And then you have the satisfaction of helping someone succeed and reach their career dreams. Mentors have a number of different roles that they can play. Again, the primary role is to be invested in you, not just your career, and to be committed to your success and helping you get there. They help create opportunity. Maybe that's introducing you to someone as they're writing a review paper. Maybe that's getting you involved with a committee that would get your name out there. They provide encouragement, psychological safety, and emotional support. And this, I think, is really important. There's someone who can help you process the experience of being an early career investigator and the struggles that come along with that, because you might be shocked to know that there are bumps in the road, and these people are here to help you through those. They can help you map the path to your ideal career, help identify training opportunities. Where are the opportunities both locally, regionally, nationally that you should take advantage of for training? They can enhance your career development, provide advice and options to consider when you're thinking about a particular dilemma. Their job isn't to tell you what to do, but rather to provide you help you think through what the options are and what the pros and cons are to help you come up with a decision, and then providing feedback. So there are several different types of mentoring models, and I've highlighted just a few of them here. So there's formal matched mentoring. So that may be where you join a new division and you get assigned to somebody. There's informal mentoring that may develop around shared interests, or someone having the skills that you want to learn. Mentoring networks or webs or mosaics, I think, is much more common frame for mentoring. And this really recognizes that one person can't really deliver all of the mentoring needs that a mentee has. And we'll talk about what those various needs are. But another benefit of this mentoring network, or the idea that you have multiple mentors kind of addressing different mentoring needs, is that it supports the achievement of the long-term goals of the mentee. So that's great. It also leads to retention of mentors and mentees. You're not the only mentor that this mentee is relying upon. So the mentee gets a little bit more broad advice. The mentor has other people to bounce things off of as well. And all of this can lead to enhancing DEI efforts. Peer mentoring is another, I think, really important part of mentoring that we don't maybe talk enough about. And I have a little bit about that later on. That can be dyadic, so between two different people. That can be a group of peers working together. That may be facilitated by someone who's more senior, or maybe an informal gathering of peers who are working to support each other. So how do you identify a mentor? The first step is to figure out where it is you're going and what do you need to get there. So start with some reflection on what your career goals are. What are your goals for the relationship with the person that you're thinking about approaching? What do you need? And then just as importantly, what are you bringing to the relationship? So although the mentor-mentee relationship isn't supposed to be about the mentor, it's really nice to be able to have a conversation about what are the skills and the things that you're bringing to that relationship as well. Asking others about recommendations. So this may be a great way to use your peer network, people around you. Who would you recommend for as a good mentor? Who have you seen? Brainstorm a list of people whose work and accomplishments you admire, and then learn more about their work to see where their interests or their expertise may dovetail with what you need help with. As you're putting that list together, think about whether they'll have sufficient time to mentor. That's sometimes can be the critical piece. If they're traveling a lot, they may not be available. Do they have a successful track record with mentoring? Have they successfully mentored other people in the past? And then when you're ready, initiate contact, introduce yourself. Or I think probably even a little more effective is having someone introduce you or connect you with that person. Let them know why you're contacting them. Be specific about the help that you're seeking, and then give them a graceful way to say, thank you, but I don't have capacity, or maybe we can meet for coffee for something brief, but give them a way to gracefully decline your offer for being a mentor. This article from White, I thought, laid out nicely some potential questions for mentees to think about when they're thinking about choosing a mentor. Are they doing something or have done something that you would like to do in their career or life? Are they respected by colleagues? Are they positive, optimistic, and enthusiastic? And this again goes back to that creating a psychological safe space and a place to be encouraged in this relationship. Do they have an established professional network and one that you would benefit from being hooked into? Do you feel comfortable with them? Again, it has to be someone that you feel comfortable going to with your struggles and having someone help you think about ways to manage those. Do you feel that your conversations will be held in confidence? Is it going to be a confidential? If you raise confidential issues, will those be held close to the chest? Are you willing to have them be candid with you, encourage you, and challenge you in order for you to reach your potential? And are you ready to formally ask someone to be your mentor? I feel like I need to have a little meme or something like, will you be my mentor? So someone I think had raised a question around diversity and mentoring, and there's a lot of literature around this, and I think this is a burgeoning area of publication. So this is the abridged version of just highlighting the benefits of diversity and mentoring. So one of the benefits of having a mentoring team or that web of mentors is that you can have lots of diversity in terms of your mentors across lots of different dimensions: race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, age, physical ability. You see lots of different dimensions here. The mentoring relationship, as we've talked about, requires mutual trust and respect. And so in a mentoring relationship where there's diversity between the mentor and the mentee, those differences can help enhance the relationship because each person then learns to appreciate the individuality of the other person. And so that can make that mentoring relationship even stronger. It's important that both the mentor and the mentee be willing and able to have discussions and create an understanding about the differences that influence how each person experiences and sees the world. Those, of course, are going to be important players in the experiences of you as a junior faculty member as you're going through, moving through academia. And so that's an important piece of that, being able to have a successful, diverse relationship. So I like the visual of the web of mentors. I don't know, it's network of mentors. It's the same idea. The idea is that each mentee has different career development needs and one person can't really meet all of these. So there may be research career development needs, so needing access to research networks, maybe to labs and data, help publishing research, needing someone to help foster your move toward being an independent researcher, identifying funding sources. Then there's needs around professional visibility. How do you grow your reputation both locally and then nationally and internationally? There are career development needs around academia. Who are the local people you need to know? What are the local networks you need to know? Maybe getting linked in with non-research publications or clinical publications. What committees are important to be a part of? Maybe needing help setting annual faculty goals. Organizational culture is another really important steep learning curve, I think, as junior faculty. What are the unwritten rules, and having someone help you navigate that. And then work-life integration. Are there people who do that really well and can help you figure out what's going to work in your own life? So if we put these different categories of career development needs, so professional visibility, research, academia, organizational culture, work-life integration, and then we can think about how different mentors might map onto those different needs. So, my primary mentor was key for my research needs, as well as helping me with all these other career development needs. But again, I think one of the benefits of having more than one mentor is you get a diversity of experiences and suggestions, and more brains thinking about how to help you succeed in your career, right? So then there's another mentor who isn't so much on the research side of things, but has helped me with professional visibility, academia, organizational culture, work-life integration. And then another one who's fed into the research a little bit, but has been really critical with the professional visibility, nominating me for leadership positions and for academia, for helping me link in with important publications. And then again, you can keep adding mentors, but this is kind of what my web looked like as a junior faculty member. And then the peer mentors also kind of helping, maybe not so much with the professional visibility part, but certainly in a lot of other areas. So just a word about peer mentoring, and I'd like to thank my peer mentor colleague, Ellen Lipstein, who co-presented with me on the topic of peer mentoring a few years ago. Why you need a peer mentor or more than one. So mentoring, as we discussed, and I think everybody knows, otherwise you wouldn't be on this talk, mentoring facilitates academic career development. It can be difficult to identify and develop a relationship with a senior mentor. Even if you do, and when you do, peer mentoring complements that traditional mentoring and has some different advantages. So a traditional mentor, when we think about what that looks like, is usually someone more experienced, so they can provide you with more knowledgeable guidance, professional connections, again, linking you to their network. That relationship is aimed at the mentee's needs, so it's usually thought of as a one-way flow of information, the more senior person guiding the more junior person. Hierarchical, this of course creates a risk for an exploitive relationship, which hopefully isn't happening to any of you. There's a risk for homogeneity, so the mentor teaching the mentee to be like him or herself, aside from the dressing alike at the beginning, and then having a lack of, quote, suitable mentors. Peer mentors are usually a similar experience or rank. They may be a step ahead, somebody that's just a little bit ahead of you, which may limit the professional connections and experience that they have. Each participant in the peer mentoring relationship contributes and gains from it. There's equal power, shared power, so that you don't have that power differential. So there's more mutual feedback and less inhibition because you're talking with somebody who's on your same level. So you can see that there are benefits to both types of relationships and they can really complement each other. So peer mentoring can increase career satisfaction and confidence, helps you receive critical feedback from someone who you're not cringing on the inside saying, oh my gosh, this person I totally admire is crushing my, paper or idea or whatever. That gives you a chance to kind of bounce things off of someone where maybe hearing that critical feedback is a little bit easier. They can provide additional specific accountability. So peer writing groups, for example, I think fall into this idea. So where you can hold each other accountable. Great, you said you were going to write your, first paragraph of your introduction today. Did you do it? And this can lead to improved productivity with manuscripts and grants. Sometimes peer mentoring relationships themselves lead to the production of manuscripts and grants based on that relationship. You can get detailed assistance from someone who's in the trenches with you and understands where you are. It fosters professional collaborations and networking. And then can, again, kind of help moderate that relationship with more senior colleagues. Challenges are the professional personal enmeshment, so the avoiding the coffee with a friend syndrome. So sometimes it's helpful to say we're going to dedicate the first 5 or 10 minutes that we see each other to catching up on life. And then after that, we stop the clock, we set a timer, and then proceed with the more with what you were actually there to do. Finding time to meet is hard, true forever. The virtual environment may help that a little bit. Professional competition among peers is maybe something that you experience or something to think about. And then there's fewer experiences to talk about, but you can certainly learn from each other and then gain that experience from what other people are living through as well. So when interacting with a peer mentor, the things you talk about may or may not be related to your overall career goals. So they may be big things like, are my goals realistic? They may be smaller things. Where should I submit my next manuscript? Or where should I next submit my manuscript? How do I discuss a problem that I'm having with my senior mentor? Should I apply for a grant? So it's a, what you can do with a peer mentor relationship, I think, is open to whatever is going to be helpful. So moving to talk about optimizing the mentoring relationship. So when we think about those more formal, more senior, more junior person mentoring relationships, they go through a number of phases. So the first phase is the preparing phase, where you as the mentee do some steps to prepare that we'll talk about. In this phase, you learn about each other, and then you decide whether or not you're going to proceed with actually establishing a formal mentoring relationship. Then there's a negotiating phase where you create ground rules together around what that relationship is going to look like, come up with a written mentoring plan and an agreement. The enabling phase is where the mentor provides the support, the challenge, and vision to help mentees grow and reach their goals. And then the closing phase is where the relationship comes to a planned, formal, positive closure. Not every mentoring relationship needs to come to a closure, but the phases should evolve over time, because what you need from a mentoring relationship evolves over time as you progress in your career. So it may be that you close the introductory part of your mentoring relationship and what you need for that with a mentor, and then open a new further advanced mentoring relationship with that same person or with somebody new. So preparing to be mentored is a really critical step in order for you to get what you need out of that relationship, and for the person that you're asking to enter into that relationship with you to understand what you're looking for. So think about and write down your career goals and what you need to reach those career goals and what you need for your career development. And it can be helpful to think about that over different phases of time. So maybe in the short term, 3 to 6 months, what do you need? Over the medium term, what might that look like? Over the long term? Honestly assess your strengths and weaknesses, because that's an important part of thinking about how to make this relationship successful. Think about, again, what you want from the mentoring relationship and what mentors you need for what development needs. Coming up with what the responsibilities for the mentor and mentee would be, and then you're going to bring that to your meeting with your mentor and talk about those. Thinking about concrete measures for progress and success. How are you going to measure whether you're making progress? How are you going to define being successful? Be willing to think about mentorship beyond the common venues. So outside of your, maybe outside of your division, right? So maybe you have a mentor outside of the institution. I had several that were a couple across the street at UC, and then several that were at other institutions across the country. Network with people at national meetings, peer mentors. Be willing to initiate contact with strangers or get introduced. I think that getting introduced makes you probably a little bit more memorable to folks. So if there's ways to use your networks to have someone introduce you to someone that you'd like to be your mentor, I think that's fantastic. And again, mentoring is a relationship. So like every relationship, you have to be prepared to put in some work. So what are the traits of a great mentee? So first of all, being passionate about succeeding in your career, because this is all about you and your success. If you don't care about succeeding in your career, it's really hard for somebody else to. Be willing to learn and be a self-directed learner. Be willing to be an active mentoring partner. And then you have to take responsibility for driving the relationship. Be an active listener, being open and honest and proactive, asking for what you need. Be respectful and appreciative of the mentor's time and input. Follow through on commitments and be accountable. Be open to feedback. I think that's probably one of the hardest things we all struggle with, taking feedback graciously. You can selectively incorporate that feedback, but it's a gift to help you improve. So avoid being defensive or argumentative. Be responsive and timely to requests from the mentor. Reflectively think about things you want to talk about. Do your own analysis about kind of where you are and what you need, and be prepared and bring those things to your meetings to talk about them. Be respectful of meeting times. That I think goes without saying that you should show up, but also be prepared. Come with an agenda and keep the meeting focused. That helps make sure that both of you get the most out of your limited time together. Be respectful of the competing demands of the mentors. Give advance notice of deadlines and requests for review. So for example, if you're anticipating you're going to want feedback on a grant proposal or a manuscript, it's helpful, I think, to send a heads up email. Hey, I anticipate having this to you by this date, and then hold to that, because then that gives the mentor the ability to create time to do a good job providing you feedback, as opposed to like, here's this paper, give me feedback, I need it tomorrow. Is probably not going to go over so well. And being flexible. So your responsibilities as the mentee are to set up regular meetings at a mutually agreed upon interval. So that's part of the opening discussion when you're meeting with a mentor. How often should you meet? And that may change over time. So for example, in the beginning, maybe you meet a little bit more often as you're getting to know each other and they're getting to understand where you want your career to go. Maybe that spaces out over time. Maybe that's a little more frequently when you're working on a mutual project together. Setting goals together with the mentor and then coming up with a plan to accomplish those goals. And then review those goals and accomplishments regularly with the mentor. There are lots of different ways to do this. There's we'll go over a couple of those, but keeping track of the goals that you've come up with together and the plan and how you've accomplished those and where you are. Ask questions and be a good listener. Seek out resources and opportunities that can advance your career. And it's totally okay to, find those resources and opportunities, bring those to the mentor. Hey, I'm thinking about signing up for XYZ. What do you think? That's one of their roles to help you figure out what's a good investment of your time and what may be a less good investment of your time. Maintain a positive attitude. It's hard for the mentor to stay positive and optimistic if you are walking around with a little thundercloud. Demonstrate and practice what you've learned, and never embarrass your mentor or put them in an awkward position. And what are mentors wanting from mentees? Mentors want us to be critical and analytical of your own work. That's how we all learn and grow. Be engaged. Again, this is a mentee-driven relationship, so what you get out of it is what you're putting into it. Decisions and time spent on projects are about the mentee's priorities. So only you can assess kind of what those priorities are, and only you can assess what your abilities and interests are. So those are important things to bring to discussions when you're talking about different activities or things that you might want to take on. Only take on projects you have the bandwidth for. I think we all think we have more bandwidth maybe than we really do. My mentor taught me a long time ago that thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity. Let me, consider this for 24 hours and get back to you. And that way you have a chance to think about what you actually do have bandwidth to cover. Know your strengths and weaknesses. Again, this helps you set career development goals. Be your own champion. Let your mentor know when you're interested in something. So for example, if there's a leadership opportunity or a committee or something else that comes up, your mentor can help you, can sponsor you for that activity, or can link you to someone who can do that. And then this was just to give you a flavor of what kinds of topics are discussed with mentors. This is from a study of mentors at UCSF. And you can see that the range is from, typical academic, how do you get funding, manuscripts and publishing, to long-term career planning, promotion and tenure, time management, networking. So the list of topics to talk about with a mentor is really broad. So challenges in mentoring relationships exist, as they do in every relationship. There may be challenges finding mentors and structuring the relationship to meet your needs. So this is where it's important to put some thought into choosing a good mentor, considering how and who's going to help meet which needs you have. And this is where I think the team mentoring is also a really important strategy to help meet these needs. Then you're not dependent on just one person. There may be challenges obtaining ongoing access to a mentor. So that may be scheduling issues. Maybe their calendar is completely full and it's hard to get in. Maybe you don't want to be perceived as a burden. Maybe there's lack of clarity about when the mentor should be involved. And these are all things I think that can be talked about as you're talking about formalizing that relationship. How are you going to make sure that you have time and access to the mentor? There may be undefined, vague, or changing roles and expectations. And this is where that mentoring agreement and the conversations around what each person is bringing to the table are important. There may be misalignment of the mentor and mentee in terms of interests, priorities, or goals. Maybe that's the mentor's interest kind of waning. Maybe that's a change in what the mentee needs. Maybe there's some competition or conflict. There may be challenges in terms of skills and the know-how necessary to help the mentee to independence. So maybe you need more help with time management or balancing competing demands, help with achieving independence. Some people I think are, and this is where having someone who's an experienced mentor and has a track record can be really important, because it's someone who's hopefully helped other mentees fledge the nest and become independent. So failed mentoring relationships are characterized by poor communication. I think that should probably be the first 3 bullets on the list, or no communication, lack of commitment, and that can be time or interest on the part of one or both members of the relationship, personality differences, perceived or real competition. So if there are overlapping interests, then that sets up the potential for there to be some perceived or real competition, development of intellectual property. There may be conflicts of interest between the needs of the mentor and the mentee. Again, the mentoring relationship should be all about the mentee, but this can happen. And then lack of experience of the mentor. And then good mentoring relationships where you, the little plant, flourish. Mutual respect for each other's time, effort, and qualifications, reciprocity, open communication, respecting confidentiality, what you talk about stays between you, having clear and defined expectations, mutual accountability for meeting those expectations, having a good chemistry and personal connection. And again, this I think comes back to being able to appreciate each other as people who have distinct individual experiences that they're bringing to the table. The mentee has passion to succeed and is committed to the success of the mentoring relationship. The mentee is driving the relationship. There's regular contact, however that's defined, between the 2 parties in the mentoring relationship. Having shared values around the approach to research, clinical work, and personal life is really helpful, as is having shared guiding values such as honesty, trust, and respect. And again, I would say these are probably things that are true of most of the relationships we have with people. So what not to do? So this paper from Vaughn and JAMA 2017 is phenomenal, and I highly recommend it. It's about mentee missteps, and it's a very entertaining way to think about behaviors that mentees might engage in that can backfire or undermine their careers. And then it's set out with a descriptive name, the diagnostic signs, how do you know that this might be you, potential solutions, and here we're going to focus on solutions for the mentee. And then I think it's important as we go through this, everybody makes missteps, right? Like our role as a mentee is to learn and not to be perfect. So when you see elements of yourself in some of these, just snicker to yourself and move on. This would be much more fun in person when I could see people laughing or looking embarrassed. So the overcommitter. So this is the person who says yes to everything, regardless of whether it's relevant, whether it's going to help them. I thought Dory was like the perfect, like, I can't possibly do anything else. Oh, look, a shiny new project. So this is the person whose commitments surpass their capacity. So even though there may be a high turnout of stuff, it's not very good. Signs that you are an overcommitter. Lots of committees and volunteering, little publications. The treatment for this is use your mentors, come to them with the things that you're thinking about doing and talk through it before you agree to anything. Look at your effort distribution. What are you supposed to be doing with your time? Or criteria for promotion. I find that this is really helpful as I'm thinking about whether or not to take something new on, pull out a copy of what do I need to do to get promoted to the next level? Is this going to help me get there? If yes, maybe I'll do it. If no, then that may be a reason not to. Think about the trade-off. If you take on this project, what are you going to stop doing or what are you going to give up doing in order to have the time and the bandwidth to do that? We're all overcommitters. We wouldn't be here otherwise. The ghost. So this is the person who hides from their mentor, often to avoid conflict. They're hoping that their poor performance will be forgotten, out of sight, out of mind. The mentor, however, may assume that no news is good news and progress is being made. And then when it turns out that that's not the case, that leads to mistrust in the relationship. Signs of the ghost. Mentee agreeing to do a project and then fails to follow through. And then the mentee avoiding discussion of questions about deadlines. So where is that paper? The treatment for the ghost is if you're uninterested in a project, suggest someone else and address the issues early. The doormat is rarely noticed, but often used. This phenotype is cultivated by malpracticing mentors. So this is where the mentee is putting in a lot of time, a lot of work, a lot of effort, but not getting much for it. Little reward, little credit. Signs of this are the mentee spending time on work unrelated to their career. There's few first author papers or papers in general in the mentee's field of interest. The treatment for this is to respectfully ask how the projects align with your goals, setting up goals and boundaries, having a mentoring committee. So this is again where that web of mentors can be super helpful, because then you have multiple people checking in on your progress and making sure that you're going in the direction your career wants to go and not in the direction that maybe this one person wants you to go. And then thinking about a new mentor. The vampire. This is the mentee who drains the lifeblood of the mentor with a never-ending string of emails, calls, texts, meeting requests. This person is paralyzed by indecision and looking for validation from the mentor. So signs would be requesting approval for every step of a project, even after you've talked about it together and come up with a next steps in a plan, lack of conviction and kind of where they're going with their career. The treatment is to embrace feelings of insecurity, talk with others, and this is where peer mentoring can be really helpful. Brainstorm solutions with a colleague or peer mentor before asking questions of your primary mentor. That way, that shows that you've thought about what the problem is and how you want to address it. The lone wolf, this is like the original Teen Wolf. Probably none of you people are old enough to know the original Teen Wolf. Yeah, okay, thank you, Dr. Shu. So this is the person who doesn't seem to need a mentor. They seem stubborn and confident. And really what's at the heart of this is being afraid to ask for help, worrying about appearing weak or foolish. The problem surfaces when something preventable but embarrassing happens that could have been avoided with guidance. So signs are a lack of trust in others, being afraid to ask for help, not performing well with teams. And the treatment is to realize that asking for help is essential for learning for all of us, and that working as a team is important for success, especially in research, right? This is not something you can do by yourself. And then finally, the backstabber. This person appears to be the ideal mentee in the beginning, but actually resents criticism and has excuses for failures, is unable to accept being at fault, and then sacrifices others when errors occur. So this is the, throwing people under the bus. Signs of this are people who have worked with the mentee don't want to do that again, ever. The person has difficulty accepting responsibility for mistakes and avoids negative feedback. And the treatment is to reframe. Again, everybody makes mistakes. We've all made mistakes. They're opportunities to learn. And then practice giving credit and taking responsibility for things. So the last bit is about transitioning to being a mentor, because at some point that will happen to all of you if it hasn't already in some capacity. So I think the first step is recognizing that you have something to teach. And I think about when I listen to the residents and medical students and hesitation around teaching medical students, like, oh, but you're eons further than these students, right? You have something to teach. Seeking training and mentoring can be really helpful. On both sides of the street, there's frequent offerings on how to improve mentoring. There are sometimes day-long retreats on mentoring and gaining mentoring skills. So you can have training at the institutional level. A lot of professional meetings and organizations also offer trainings like at national meetings around mentoring. AAMC has mentoring resources, as does the National Research Mentoring Network. Learn from a great mentor who has a good track record. Work with someone who's really good at it. Notice what they do really well and incorporate that into your own practice. Get feedback from your mentor on when you're ready to mentor. And then another thing you can do when working with a senior mentor is getting practice being the middle person. So for example, if there's a student working with your senior mentor over the summer, then maybe you're the middle person in between them, and you can provide mentorship to that more junior person while still being supervised by the more senior person. And so you can develop your mentoring skills in that way. Be accessible and approachable. I feel like COVID has kind of put a little bit of a damper on that. You know, the open door policy was really like opening your doors, and then we all had to close our doors and wear masks and work from home. But being accessible and approachable and conveying that you are, I think, is really important. Beware of the risk of a competitive relationship. If you're mentoring as an early career person yourself, you have to be very clear about making sure that you, in the role of mentor, you're meeting the mentee's goals and not your own. And then reflect on what kind of person you want to be and how you can model that behavior for a mentee. So this is just a quick smattering of mentoring resources. If you're at the Cincinnati Children's side of the street, there's an Office of Academic Affairs and Career Development, and they have lots of different resources. There's a library on the 7th floor of Casota Building with some of the references that I've listed here. They also on the website have the Faculty Mentorship Handbook and worksheets that can be really helpful. You see through the CCTST, there are a couple of recordings around mentoring. And then at the end, I'd love to hear if people have other resources for mentoring that they've come across in either of these places or other places. So from the Cincinnati Children's Office of Academic Affairs and Career Development, there's a faculty mentorship handbook. And then attached to that is a network plan where you can think about potential mentors, how that mentor will help you achieve your goals, what are the expected outcomes for that relationship, what can you bring to that relationship. They have templates for mentorship agreements, so things to think about and talk about as you're meeting with a mentor and formalizing that relationship. And then there's also individual development plans on that page. And there's, I think, lots of publications that talk about individual development plans. But this is a great way to kind of talk with the mentor around what are your goals, what are the steps you're going to do to meet those goals, what's your progress, where are you running into struggles or barriers, and what can you do to overcome those. And so that's a nice way to kind of track your progress over time with your mentor using something like that.